The Glocal World after World War III, the mineralization of our planet, an approach to conflicting cultures, a prophecy of harmony. This presentation provides an approach to solving the conflict of the current unfolding of World War III, next explaining the root of the conflict fought by cultural, religious, and socio-economic identities. This information should serve as a prophecy of harmony for the future, drawing on past prophecies and concepts found in the fields of science and religion. Before we continue, let me draw your attention to some disclaimers. This work does not try to represent, advertise, or speak against any of the sources and authors mentioned here. This model is based on insights gained mainly from Japanese religions and is not an academic one. The divisions of conscious is difficult and I make only suggestions. The nature of prophecy is to be kept in mind. The outcome of events is always unpredictable factors. Let me draw your attention now to the content as follows. World War predictions. World War III as a conflict of cultural boundaries and intellectual notions. Japan as cosmic factor in its relationship to the planet, the designation of territories and the Taika reforms, Buddhist cosmology and the ascension of the quantum field of Gaia and possible solution of the conflict, and lastly a prophecy of harmony. Now various books in the Bible predict World War III and the Armageddon. Daniel's prophecy predicted about 1,300 days of catastrophe to overcome before world peace can finally be attained. It is not clear if these years have already started or not, but it suggests that the great catastrophes are still yet to come and that we have the power to change the outcome. Isaiah pointed to islands located in the east as a critical point for the salvation of all mankind. I argued that he pointed to Japan. Please keep in mind that Ezekiel's visions confirmed the triumph of God. The Japanese prophet Onisaburo Deguchi predicted rightly a wide range of events of the past century and also pointed to our future. Let me read his prophecy in translation to you. The colonies are the product of the law of the jungle and all must be equal whether they are white or black. There is nothing more important than the soul. A colonial liberation movement occurred in colonies and vassal states around the world became independent one after another. The United States was undergoing bifurcation, and instead of abandoning its policy, the United States intervened in Vietnam, which became a matter of no worsening nor improvement. Eventually, they will lose the battle of the market even to Japan and will bow their heads to a country they did not even have in their sight. That country, China, will be united and become a great power. Everyone thinks that America will win if the United States overestimates her enormous military power, saying, even if it's rotten, it's still worthwhile. Next is a war between God and Russia. From the eyes of God, atomic bombs are equivalent to sparkness. However, the devil himself will create weapons thousands of times more powerful than the current atomic bombs, toxin bullets, biological bullets, and other ultimate weapons. So the big three disasters are yet to come. The real rain of fire. It's not about 30% of the population when it says in the writings that the world population will be reduced to 3 segments. It's actually to 3%, taking and talking about a third of the population. Even half of it is difficult. Another Japanese source of prophecy called the Sun and Moon Revelations, Hitsuko Shinji, are a set of automatic writings conceived by Temme Okamoto and predict the attack on Japan from 5 directions and his resurrection as guiding the world into peace based on its philosophy of harmony called Wa. In order to better understand the root of conflict in our present world, we need to look back in retrospect how historically science, economics, and politics evolved alongside each other. Newton's mechanics form the basis for our current sciences. From Newton evolved the philosophies of Kant and Hegel, who postulated the concept of a priori time-space. This simply means that the space-time is God-given and exists as a precondition, which is the actual state of affairs. On the basis of the philosophy of Kant and Hegel, the two most fundamental forms of economics were formed: capitalism by Adam Smith and its other pole Karl Marx, and communism. However, the belief that the world can be dominated by a single country or captured by a single map or a single belief system or philosophy is old and outdated. Einstein's theory of relativity refutes a priori time-space, and quantum physics claims that the universe unfolds through observation. Currently, institutions such as CERN try to prove this claim through their experiments, making this a very contemporary issue indeed. Although transculturation happens not only at borders, but also at the heart of cultural spheres, nations with power try to forcefully assimilate other territories with notions of Unitarianism, such as either globalism or nationalism, to regulate the homogeny of their territory. This either-or approach has not worked so far and is destined to fail. Let us continue now by diving into the topic of cosmology and sacred geography, an aspect that is stressed in Japanese new religions but not very well known in the Western spirituality is the belief that the Japanese islands are a miniature figure of the continents. Therefore, they are a spatial fractal of the world, and the world in itself is a fractal of the whole cosmos and the cradle of individuated life. This correspondence of Japan as the microcosmic counterpart to the macrocosmic world is referred to as miniature theory. Therefore, the energy and people of Japan affect the whole world and vice versa. Our planet Earth is an alive creature and as such possesses all attributes of an organism, such as organs with different functions represented by different countries. Scholarly, such ideas has been discussed in the Gaia hypothesis of James Lovelock in 1972, and this map is based on a combined model of Matthias de Stefano. One region trying to fulfill the role of another region with a specific task. The role of the parts of the Earth's body led to disorder in the organic system. The human organism and the various cycles of planet Earth are in close correlation with each other. Certain areas of the world function as chakras and organs of the planet connected through ley lines, and countries in these regions fulfill subconsciously the functions of such an integral system. In the intricate web of life, where everything in existence is connected, humans and planets possess a divine task. Therefore, it makes sense to treat Gaia as a mandalic structure. Mandalas are Buddhist paintings depicting certain psychological and cosmological topologies, which can be an aid in visualization, but also treated as a blueprint of harmonic structures. We will discuss their role in the proposed solution. In his title of 1996, The Clash of Civilizations and the Remaking of World Order, Samuel P. Huntington formulated a model of about 8 to 9 big cultural spheres and religious identities encompassing our present civilization. He rightly predicted that these spheres will be in conflict with each other in the post-war period. Precisely, we are currently continuing to witness various conflicts in culturally ambiguous territories such as presently Ukraine and Taiwan. Since transculturality, as explained by Wolfgang Welch in 1999, for example, is still not a very well-established framework in the public domain. On a spiritual level, the correspondences of Japan and the world are not harmonious. Conflict continues to arise in territories where multiple cultural and religious identities collide. We have covered now the basic concept of fractal geography. However, this relationship extends to Japan's function as temporal fractal too. This simply means that events that have happened in Japan's history are bound to be repeated in a similar form in the world and the other way around. Happenings in Japan have an exponential effect on the cosmos, and with a time gap in information exchange, this goes for the Earth at large. I want to highlight that in world history, we are currently facing the recapitulations of the events of the Taika Reform, the beginning of the Nara period in Japanese history. The incorporation of Chinese culture and Buddhist values increased during this time period. Next to the ban of eating red meat, the newly implemented Ritsuryo system divided Japan into 5 capital regions and its other regions into 8 core regions, reminiscent of our present 8 culture spheres. Therefore, a similar structuring is bound to occur now and is already in the process of occurring in the world. Although the external correspondences in cultural continent are not so obvious, the following map shows an approximation to the outline of the Nara period, including Japan's northern island. In contrast, we can see in the following map which regions form a common cultural sphere. The template of Japan formulated back then does not exactly correspond to our present world. If we, for example, compare the southern island of Kyushu with Africa, we see the split into two different culture spheres on the continent, whereas Kyushu was legislated as a whole province as the Western Sea Circuit. Seeing the maps, in contrast, we can see how this energetic inharmony has come about. On a local scale, conflicts over religion have been fought in Japan by warring clans, just as they are continuously fought on a global scale. If we understand that Buddhism back then is the counterpart to present-day globalism, and ancient Shinto traditions correspond to nationalism, we obtain a clear picture of the conflict. Japanese saints such as Eno, Ozono, and Kukai developed methods to harmonize the various religious traditions of their times. The harmony of Buddhism and Shinto has been referred to by Prince Shotoku in Japan's primal legislative codex as well, and forms the core of Japanese values. An example of this is the Bodhisattva, meaning a being striving for enlightenment and saving sentient beings, called Hachiman Daibosatsu. Due to migration of the Judeo-Christian Hatha clan to Japan, through the Silk Road, the being referred to as Yahweh and later Yawata came into contact with Buddhism and elevated his dimension in the three worlds cosmology. This slide shows a rendition of Buddhist cosmology which categorizes the universe into three levels: the world of desires, the world of form, and the formless realms, which are further classified into multiple dimensions. The ascension of Yahweh, who was an interdimensional associated with the Sirius, began when the guardian spirits attached to ancestors of people worshipping Yahweh in Japan started to learn and practice Buddhism, and through this Yahweh evolved into a Bodhisattva being under the name Hachiman or Yawata. Through dimensional resonance, similar scenarios happen to beings associated with other clans and regions. We must take into consideration that sentient beings in general change their names and function according to the time period and places they're active in. Most importantly, their consciousness changes with time, just as human perception does. If Yahweh, who is closely connected to the Jewish and Christian traditions, manages to elevate his dimension and transcends the formless realms, world peace will be achieved. All the deities of the planet and the cosmos are called to raise their dimensions respectively. This will start with the Japanese deities realizing their identities as avatars and become bodhisattvas, and the deities of the spheres will follow suit, guided by their mandalic counterparts. For this reason, I want to propose a non-dual yet binary model in which each of the 8 cultural spheres creates a cultural nationalism, and all of these unified fields together as one form a united globalism. Of course, it is up to the 8 spheres how they want to designate their inner territories, but keep in mind that all is factor in nature with organic differences in appearance only. Although Japan is a small country in comparison to the geographically large territories of the other 7 civilizations, its role as a fractal doorway and its unique integration of Western and Eastern civilization make it its own cultural sphere with a unique language. Next to Japan are proposed the United Kingdom, Taiwan, parts of Oceania, Israel, and the Vatican, to be retained as their own cultural spheres, forming the mandala of 13 cultural spheres, forming our Glocal Earth community. This sketch portrays the mandala of the New Earth, next to constituting its own cultural sphere represented in white in the middle. The 5 capital regions of Japan in the past correlate to the future independent cultural spheres. The past 8 divisions of Japan correspond roughly to our current 8 great civilizations. The mandalas will help in harmonizing Buddhism with other religions, since they have been conceived as transcending yet encompassing all space-time seen from the vantage points of matter and consciousness, respectively. They are schemes for an integrated state of the world and display various methods for sentient beings to raise their dimension. Also, Onisaburo Deguchi titled A New World, The World of Maitreya, named after the future Buddha, called in Japanese Miroko no Yo. This was a word riddle because in Japanese the phonemes can be read and interpreted as numbers. In this example, mi, 3, ro, 6, ku, no yo, the ascension of the individual has already been achieved, and this pointed to the power of 369, also expounded by Nikola Tesla with reference to free energy, and indeed he was pointing to the secret of time and its function of creation, preservation, and demanifestation. On the other hand, mi as 3, roku, 6, noyo, 4, pointed to the ascension of the world. 3 plus 6 plus 4 equals 13, so he pointed to the secret of space as the 13 transcultural spheres after all. I conclude that after the world will naturally flow into this model of 8 great transcultural spheres creating together a united harmony with Glocal territories, each of them representing the uniqueness as a sacred facet of a unified transcultural mosaic, the 13, 8 plus 5 Glocal transcultural spheres. Just as the great civilizations emerged from the interactions and individuations of the 3 mythological civilizations, Mu, Lemuria, Atlantis, so are they destined to metamorphose into 3 new civilizations again, referred to as New Jerusalem or New Jupiter. Further war can be prevented if we honestly try to implement this model as soon as possible. The Mandalization of the planet is the key.